Israel-Hamas ceasefire situation, that Israel-Hamas reach a ceasefire deal, and Trump has spoken on Truth Social media. He said, we have a deal for hostages. Hostages will be released shortly. This ceasefire deal comes months after talks. Israel-Hamas agreed to halt fighting in Gaza. That's the news that we are breaking at this hour. Let me go over to my colleague Mohammad Ghazali for more on this story. Ghazali, this is a pretty significant moment. After months of talks, now there is a breakthrough.
Yeah, certainly. And earlier we were just quoting some reports, sources. So it's officially coming from the President-elect, Mr. Trump. He has also put out on his social media that the deal has been brokered and very soon hostages will be released. Now, as per the deal or the draft proposal which was circulating in the media, quoted by Israeli and Arab media, suggests that perhaps in the first batch, 33 Israeli hostages will be released by Hamas. That could effectively come or happen on Sunday. But before all that, Israeli Prime Minister and his cabinet, security cabinet, has to approve this deal, which is more of a formality right now, because the mediators who are involved in this talk, the ones representing Israel, the ones representing Hamas, have agreed for the ceasefire deal in Qatar, is what we are being told from different quarters. Now, when Mr. Trump has already put it out, so it's certainly a stamp on this story that the ceasefire deal has been achieved. But now how it will progress, because Hamas would also expect Israel to release a lot of detainees, a lot of Palestinians who are in Israeli prison for the last 10 years, 15 years. There is several categories on which both sides will have to agree upon, because there are many people who have been accused of heinous crimes by Israeli courts, and there are many who are languishing in Israeli jails without any charges or crimes or trial. So those are still the complexities of which will be part of this ceasefire deal, and we'll have to see whether Israel will fully agree to evacuate or sort of leave the Gaza Strip, because Israel still wants to stay in certain areas of Gaza Strip which borders towards, which shares its border with Egypt on one side and shares the other border with Israel on one side.
Let me also go over to Melissa Weiss, the Tel Aviv executive editor of Jewish Insider. Melissa, could you take us through the finer details of what is happening, what has been the deal right now, the ceasefire deal?
Sure. So over the last week or so, there has been this pressure that I think all sides have felt in the run-up to Inauguration Day next Monday. You've had President-elect Donald Trump making a series of statements, sending out the message, there will be hell to pay if a deal is not reached by Inauguration Day, January 20th. And so I think Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was feeling that pressure, and he was also feeling pressure internally. Majority of Israelis, according to a poll released by the Israel Democracy Institute last week, found 58% of Israelis supported making a deal on the terms that were on the table, which is now what has happened. So we know that Netanyahu was feeling the pressure both at home and in Washington, both from the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration. We also know that Hamas was in a much weaker position than it was 7 months ago, when another deal was on the table. Essentially the same deal with very little change. Hamas rejected that deal, and in the time that has passed, the leadership of Hamas has been largely killed. Yahya Sinwar, who was the October 7th mastermind, was killed in October. Mohammed Daif is believed to have been killed in July. Ismail Haniyeh, of course, was killed in Tehran. And so there is a leadership vacuum within Hamas. They are at a weak point. They have seen mounting casualties from their military ranks, and they just don't have the support from the rest of the region. And so that pressure on them and the pressure on Netanyahu brought everyone to the table at this critical moment, and that is how we now have a deal.